Here's a question that keeps most HVAC contractors awake at night. What percentage of the residential systems you installed last year were actually designed versus just installed? And before you answer, let me give you some context that might make you uncomfortable. A 2019 study published by ASHRAE Journal found that roughly 75% of residential HVAC systems are improperly sized. That's 3 out of every 4 homes. So, if you think your company's immune to the problem, the numbers say otherwise. Hi, I'm Chris with HVAC Pro Blog, and I've spent over 2 decades in this industry. I started at 16 carrying tools, made every mistake you can imagine, and somewhere along the way, started training contractors across New England. What I've learned from working with hundreds of companies last year alone is this. The difference between struggling contractors and thriving ones isn't about who works harder. It's about who understands system design. Today, we're going deep into the real problems plaguing residential HVAC, why most contractors are leaving massive amounts of money on the table, and how a simple 15-point audit can show you exactly where you stand. Stay until the end because I'm giving you the complete framework for free, and this might be the wake-up call that your business needs. All right, let's start with the uncomfortable truth about load calculations. According to research from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, only about 23% of HVAC contractors consistently perform manual J load calcs. That means 77% are sizing equipment based on what? Square footage rules of thumb? The old equipment nameplate? Or whatever fits the budget? Here's why this matters more than most contractors realized. A 2018 study from the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory found that oversized heat pump systems can consume up to 30% more energy than properly sized units. But energy waste is just the beginning. Short cycling from oversized equipment creates humidity problems, comfort complaints, and premature equipment failure. You're not just wasting energy, you're creating future callbacks and destroying your reputation one install at a time. I was working with a contractor in Worcester about a year ago. He's a good guy. He's been in business for about 15 years, solid reputation. He called me because his callback rate was climbing and he couldn't figure out why. So we started looking at his process, and within 10 minutes I found the problem. He wasn't doing load calcs at all, just matching tonnage to the old equipment or using square footage rules. I asked him about one specific job he'd recently done. Beautiful colonial. It's about 2,000 square feet, and he replaced a 4-ton system with, you guessed it, another 4-ton system. And it was single stage. The customer started calling within weeks. It was too humid in the summer, uneven temperatures. The first floor was freezing in order to get the master bedroom comfortable. It was classic signs of an oversized, poorly zoned system. We went back together and ran a proper manual J. It turns out the house needed about 2 tons. Maybe 2.5 at most. The homeowners had done extensive insulation work and they replaced all the windows and added significant air sealing a few years before the HVAC replacement. This is information that this contractor never asked about because he assumed that the old system was sized correctly. This issue cost him about $8,000 in equipment, labor, and lost reputation to fix what should have been right the first time. The customer never referred anybody, but that job changed how he approaches every single install now. Last time we talked, his callback rate had dropped by over 40% in that last year. The problem runs deeper than that though. Research from Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in 2020 found that duct leakage averages about 25 to 40% of total airflow in typical residential systems. Think about that. You're losing up to 40% of the air you're trying to deliver before it even reaches the rooms. That's not a small problem. That's a system design catastrophe. But duct leakage is just one piece of the ductwork disaster most contractors ignore. A comprehensive study from National Comfort Institute found that 85% of residential duct systems have inadequate airflow to at least one room. 85%. These aren't systems designed wrong and installed perfectly. These are systems that were never designed at all. I get it. Manual D duct design calculations take time. They're tedious. They require measuring, calculating, and actually thinking about airflow dynamics. So most contractors skip them entirely. They look at existing ductwork, assume it's adequate, and move on. The result? Rooms that never get comfortable, customers who never stop complaining, and contractors who blame the equipment instead of their process. Static pressure is another area where the industry has completely failed. According to a 2017 study in HVAC&R Research Journal, The average residential system operates at external static pressures 50 to 80% higher than equipment design specs. Every 0.1 inch of water column above design spec reduces airflow by approximately 3 to 5% according to manufacturer data. Here's what that means in plain English. Most systems are working way harder than they should to move less air than they need to. Equipment runs longer, uses more energy, fails sooner, and never delivers the comfort it's capable of. And contractors have no idea because they never measure static pressure. They install the equipment, listen for airflow, and call it good. But let's talk about the business impact of poor system design, because this isn't just about technical standards, it's about money. A 2021 survey by ACA found that contractors who consistently implement quality installation standards report 28% fewer callbacks than those who don't. 28%. If you're running $1 million company and spending 10% of revenue on warranty and callback work, that's $28,000 straight to your bottom line just by doing the job right the first time. That same ACA survey found that quality-focused contractors command average price premiums of 18 to 32% over competitors. Let me repeat that. Up to 32% higher prices for the same equipment because customers recognize and pay for expertise. That's not about marketing or sales tactics. That's about demonstrating genuine knowledge through documented design processes. Equipment selection based on actual application needs, not just capacity, is where most contractors completely miss the boat. A Department of Energy field study from 2019 found that variable capacity equipment reduces energy consumption by 20 to 40% compared to single stage systems in most residential applications. But here's the catch. That savings only happens when the equipment is properly sized and applied. I've watched contractors put single stage equipment into homes because it's cheaper to purchase and easier to install. They're leaving thousands in energy savings on the table and creating comfort problems that variable capacity equipment would have solved. However, nobody's explaining to homeowners why variable capacity technology matters because most contractors don't understand it themselves. Heat pump performance at low temperatures is another area where ignorance creates massive problems. Research from the Cold Climate Housing Research Center shows that traditional heat pump capacity can drop by 50 to 70% at 5 degrees Fahrenheit, compared to rated capacity at 47 degrees. Most contractors look at nameplate capacity and call it good. They don't check extended performance data. They don't calculate actual heating capacity at design conditions. Then they wonder why customers complain about auxiliary heat running constantly. Of course, installation quality is where theory crashes into reality and the numbers are ugly. The EPA estimates that 60 to 80% of installed HVAC systems have incorrect refrigerant charge. A study published in ASHRAE Transactions found that just 10% undercharge reduces cooling capacity by 7% and increases energy consumption by 5%. Overcharging is even worse. 20% overcharge can increase energy consumption by 12% while also reducing capacity. But here's the thing that drives me crazy. Verifying refrigerant charge with superheat and subcooling measurements takes maybe 15 minutes. That's it. 15 minutes to ensure the system operates at design efficiency and capacity. Most installers skip it because they're in a hurry. They don't have the tools or they don't know how to interpret the measurements. So they add what the label says, hope for the best, and move on to the next job. I had a contractor reach out to me from south of Boston a few years ago. He was frustrated because he kept getting called back to homes where he'd install brand new efficiency heat pumps. Customers complaining about high electric bills and poor heating performance. He couldn't figure out what was going wrong. Same equipment he'd been installing for years. Same process. Suddenly, nothing was working right. So I asked if I could ride along with him on a few calls. First house we went to, brand new heat pump installed 4 months earlier. We checked the charge, 28% low. Measured static pressure, 0.85 inches of water column when it should have been around 0.5. Airflow at the registers, maybe 65% of what it should be. Second house, similar story. The charge was high this time. Static pressure through the roof. Nobody had ever verified that anything worked correctly after install. This contractor had a solid installation crew, good people who'd been with him for years. But nobody was checking their work. They'd install equipment, fire it up, Make sure it ran and left. No verification, no measurements, no documentation that the system actually performed to spec. So we spent about 2 weeks retraining his installation crews on verification procedures. And within 6 months, his callback rate dropped drastically. Customer satisfaction scores went up, and he started getting more referrals. The same crews, the same equipment. The only difference was 15 minutes of measured verification on every job. You see, that's the business cost of skipping verification. Lost reputation, lost referrals, lost future revenue. But it's completely fixable once you recognize the problem. Customer communication and value presentation separate professional contractors from equipment installers. Research from the Building Performance Institute found that homeowners who receive detailed explanations of system design rationale are 43% more likely to approve premium equipment recommendations. It's not about sales tactics. It's about education creating value perception. Most contractors present proposals based on equipment features and price because that's all they know how to talk about. They haven't done design work, so they can't explain design value. They're competing on price because they've given customers no other criteria for decision making. Here's what successful contractors understand. Customers don't buy heat pumps or air conditioners. They buy comfort, reliability, lower utility bills, and peace of mind. When you can explain exactly how your design process delivers those outcomes, price actually becomes less relevant. You're not asking your customers to trust that your equipment is better. You're showing them documentation proving your system is engineered for their specific home. A 2021 study in Energy and Buildings Journal found that homeowners who received detailed load calcs and system design documentation had satisfaction scores 39% higher than those who received standard proposals. Same equipment, same install. The only difference was documentation and explanation. The business model implications of mastering system design are substantial. According to data from ServiceTitan analyzing over 2 million HVAC jobs, contractors in the top quarter for callback rates spend approximately 6 to 8% of revenue on warranty work. The bottom quartile contractors, those with the worst callback rates, spend 18 to 24%. That's a difference of 12 to 16% of gross revenue going directly to profit or being wasted on fixing problems that shouldn't exist. That same data shows top contractors have average ticket sizes 27% higher than their counterpart bottom contractors. Better quality, higher prices, lower callbacks, and more profit. That's not luck. That's the compound effect of professional system design processes. Now, here's where most contractors miss. The gap between where you are and where you need to be is completely closable. This isn't about talent or even experience. It's about knowledge and systems. According to ACCA's education metrics, contractors who complete comprehensive system design training see average callback reductions of 34% within the first year. You see, that's measurable, immediate business impact. But training only works if you implement it. I've watched contractors go through excellent education programs, get excited about everything they've learned, and then go back to their companies and change nothing. Old habits, time pressure, and fear of slowing down production kills implementation before it starts. The contractors who actually transform their businesses are the ones who commit to changing one thing at a time. Start with load calculations on every job. Once that becomes routine, add duct design. Then add measured verification, then documentation. Layer professional practices over time until they become standard operating procedures. Research from the Residential Energy Services Network shows that contractors who implement systematic quality processes see revenue growth rates approximately 40 to 60% higher than industry averages over 5-year periods. That's not massive marketing budgets or sales tactics, see? That's reputation and referrals generated by consistent excellence. So, where do you actually stand? Most contractors have no idea because they've never honestly assessed their processes against industry standards. They assume they're doing fine because customers aren't complaining and the phone keeps ringing. But acceptable and excellent are separated by massive profit margins and business growth. The 15-point audit I'm giving you breaks down into 5 critical areas: load calculations and equipment sizing, ductwork design and airflow, system selection and application, installation quality and verification, and customer communication. Each area gets 3 specific evaluation points. You score yourself honestly on each point, total it up, and you'll know exactly where you stand. So here's what I've learned evaluating contractors over the years. Your score directly predicts your profitability, customer satisfaction, and long-term viability. Contractors scoring in the top tier, 120 points or higher out of 150, are making serious money while working reasonable hours. They're building businesses with value beyond their personal presence. Bottom tier contractors, if you're below 60 points, are grinding, fighting for every dollar, and wondering why they can't break out of that cycle. The difference isn't mysterious. It's not about who's the better salesperson or who has the best marketing. It's about who understands that residential HVAC is an engineering discipline, not just a skilled trade. Systems need to be designed before they're installed. Performance needs to be verified before you leave the job. And customers need education before they can appreciate value. Every single one of these 15 points represents both an opportunity and a vulnerability. Where you score low, that's where competitors can eat your lunch. Where you score high, that's where you can dominate your market. The audit isn't about feeling bad about gaps. It's about identifying exactly where focused improvement creates maximum business impact. Here's my challenge. Take the audit seriously. Be brutally honest with yourself about what you're consistently doing versus what you're occasionally doing when you remember. Score yourself. Identify your weakest areas and commit to fixing one thing at a time. Not someday, not when things slow down, now. The residential HVAC industry is changing fast. Homeowners are more educated than ever. Building codes are getting stricter. Equipment is becoming more sophisticated. The installation-only approach that worked 20 years ago just doesn't cut it anymore. Contractors who adapt to an engineering mindset will thrive. Those who don't will compete on price until they go out of business or burn out trying. You can master this stuff. It's not rocket science. It's building science, psychrometrics, and attention to detail. It's teachable, it's learnable, it requires commitment and the willingness to admit there's a gap between where you are and where you need to be. The audit gives you clarity. What you do with that clarity determines whether your business grows or grinds. So, download the complete 15-point system design audit in the description and find out exactly where you stand for free. I'll see you soon.